Hello and welcome listeners. My name is Kaarle Wirta and you're tuning in to the Startup.Tampere, the podcast that dives into the heart of the startup world of Tampere, Finland. Today we're joined by a special guest. We're very proud and excited about we have Kaj Hagros here, the CEO of Redstone Nordics and an experienced startup investor with us here today. We'll be talking about the new service program designed to help Tampere-based startups to grow and become more global. Kaj, great to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Let's start a little bit with your background. Kaj, tell our listeners a few words about yourself and how did you get involved with building startups and supporting startups on their growth path?
Yeah, so originally from Aalto University, industrial management way back in the 90s. And then as it was so fashionable, I joined Nokia as my first job or doing the master's thesis and stayed there for about 7 years altogether. In R&D, product development, in global system marketing, also sales, account management. I was in Sweden for a while, so selling network equipment to a Swedish operator. And then a while back in strategy and business development for mobile internet services. Great years, and we all remember what the end of 90s was for the telecoms and mobile services ecosystem for Finland and for Nokia. And so a great learning with that young age to be able to meet operators around the world and get a glimpse of international business and marketing and sales. But I started to feel an urge to be slightly more entrepreneurial. I come from an entrepreneurial family. My mother was and still is an entrepreneur. And I also started my first company at the age of 15, so I kind of had the urge from young age onwards already. But it was this huge mobile networking boom that sucked everybody in, and I'm happy that it turned out that way. But as said, I wanted to be slightly more entrepreneurial, so I joined a venture capital-backed Finnish technology company called First Hop. I moved to Singapore for 3 years, establishing regional sales and project operations. For about 3 years, I spent a while back in Finland, while in the UK. We were actually preparing a public listing IPO for the company. We were about 70 people at the time in the alternative listed market in London, but turned out to be acquired by an American company. After the integration, I joined a slightly bigger American company. I worked with News Corp, the media company heading operations for mobile services in Berlin and Los Angeles for a while. And then for about 4 years, I served as the CEO of a Nasdaq Helsinki traded telecom IT company, Technotree. But at that point, in a way, being so long in the industry, I kind of wanted to go back to the roots. It was also exactly at the same time when the students were starting a huge movement in Otaniemi and Aalto University around entrepreneurship society and slush and startup sauna and everything that became like a miracle in 10 and 15 years. So much incredible has happened in the small peninsula of Otaniemi. So I wanted to kind of go back to the entrepreneurial movement, and I started coaching with Startup Sauna. I joined an accelerator. We did angel investments. We did investments together. We did investments with corporates, so kind of a corporate venture capital. And a few years later, I think this was 2017, I joined Redstone, which is a Berlin, Munich, and Zurich-based venture capital firm. And we started the Nordic operations initially with 2 people, starting to do corporate venture capital investments and subsequently investments from funds that we manage ourselves. Right. So now we're 5 people full-time here in Finland, another 5 freelancers. We are actively managing 3 funds. We're setting up a 4th fund, which is going to be focused on blue economy, anything sea-related, and opening a new office in Turku for that. We've done 30 plus investments on the past 3 or 4 years, so fairly active but very early stage. So that's what we're doing in Finland.
Yeah. Sounds like your path, kind of like you have seen and experienced many different things and sides of the entrepreneurship, which is also relates then to, of course, the startup scene, what we're going to talk here about today. How do you see Redstone Nordics here today in the Finnish startup ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think we're fairly active from the point of view that we've done 30 plus investments in a matter of a few years' time, although they're all fairly early stage. Our funds have been small and quite regionally focused. But it's expanding. So as said, now we're building the fourth fund. We also have a very interesting new activity with the City of Riihimäki. Last year we joined forces and we've been running a defense startup accelerator together with the City of Riihimäki, which has gained a lot of international interest. We've attracted 100 plus applicants from various NATO countries, and it's putting a small city of Riihimäki in a totally different, globally relevant perspective, obviously driven by the mega trends of defense and security technology. But now we're very happy to expand these activities further into Tampere. I think there's a lot of potential, but there's a lot of room for development. Redstone has been tracking innovation activities on around 500 European universities and cities. And for whatever reason, maybe you know them better, Tampere isn't performing as well as some of the peer universities. So on our recent sort of startup development efficiency, I think Aalto University was ranking 12 in Europe, and Tampere was somewhere like 230 or 250. So there's a lot of room for development and a strange difference. It's the second largest city in Finland, but for whatever reason, the startup deal flow hasn't been that active, even in sort of Finnish perspective. So there's still work to be done.
Yeah, and that's also jumping right to the next topic related to that is, of course, the new service program that we are about to start to collaborate on. And first of all, it's a pleasure to start working with you also here in Tampere. And for those reasons as well, you mentioned there's always going to be room for improvement. Redstone will be offering Tampere-based startups a new program to help to scale up and grow. And I think many of our listeners are curious to hear about what is this program in a nutshell, and in other words, what will you bring? What will your company bring to the startups in the Tampere scene?
So yes, very happy to join forces on this startup support program. We're looking at this in a way slightly as an accelerator, but we're not planning to build like an accelerator batch that would run for 3 months, 6 months for a given cohort. But instead we're thinking like an ongoing rotating series of activities where all the interested parties may tag along. Some may be in a way with greater exposure, some may be coming from time to time. It will be a combination of meetups, events, training, meeting with investors, getting feedback in startup clinics from investors, together with FIBAN, the Finnish Business Angels Network, which is probably the most active business angel network across Europe with 600 members, which is a lot for a small country. They'll be supporting this activity together, managing some of the events, and in particular managing the Pitch Finland competition, which is tentatively going to take place twice a year in Tampere as well. So those will be some visible ways of participating. Low threshold, people within Platform 6, people from outside can join a meetup, can join a learning session, a knowledge sharing session, maybe a guest lecture or another type of a training. And then on top of this recurring kind of a curriculum, we plan to offer individual coaching. So speaking slots between one startup and one investor. And in my experience, having been in a number of accelerators and a number of VC funds, those 30 minutes together once, twice, or 3 times can be very, very valuable, can be very efficient time-wise. Sometimes you get so much more challenging coaching feedback from a 30-minute discussion with an experienced investor or serial entrepreneur, as opposed to doing 5 university courses, which of course are needed as well.
Yeah, it's kind of probably like a combination of many different things and needed. And what is, if you think about like the team you have and the people you can imagine working with in Tampere, but also in your company altogether, what kind of expertise and resources does your sort of staff and background have for the startup?
Yeah, so all in all with Redstone, we're about 35 people.
Yeah.
Like said, 5 in Finland, full-time, additional 5 freelancers. Most of our staff based in Berlin office, and then similarly additional teams in Munich and Zurich. We've been around for now 12 years. We are managing 10 plus funds, probably 15 funds for the time being. All in all, about 500 million assets under management, which means our average fund is actually quite small compared to dedicated vintage VC fund teams, which comes from our background. We started working initially with corporate venture capital, so helping European and Asian corporations to do startup investments, not just in a way seeking profits, but also from innovation, learning, business model, technology, networks points of view. So therefore, our organization has been built in a different structure compared to a normal VC fund. We're used to working with number of investment strategies in parallel. And therefore, we have been able to quite efficiently set up smaller regional funds in Finland as well. So we've done regional investments earlier in North Karelia, in South Savo, even South Ostrobothnia. Now we're setting up the blue economy themed, anything ocean related fund where the new office will be domiciled in Turku. With the 35 people and earlier about 70 European Asian corporations with whom we did venture capital investments, we've obviously built a wide network. Networks, in a way, is of course one very important ingredient in startup development. Of course, you need a dedicated team that has the conviction, has the passion, has the resilience to go through those first tough 5 years and maybe 3 or 4 different pivots before they find the right go-to-market strategy and the product market fit. But the next thing is to find the first investor. That's the second kind of important threshold. You have the team together, they have an idea, hopefully some technology, but they have the passion and resilience.
Yeah.
But then they need to find the first investor, no matter whether the first investment is 50,000 or 500,000, but something to get going. And of course, in Finland, we have quite good public backing from Business Finland and similar that can leverage the private capital. But I think for this program as well, it's important that we play a role in encouraging people to get going. In particular, people from the university should consider entrepreneurship as a feasible and attractive career path. Yeah. We can't do that alone and we can't do miracles, but I hope that we'll play a role in encouraging the wider community around the region to consider entrepreneurship as a viable option, to give them support, give them guidance, give them coaching. But then the real kind of a milestone is the first funding package. And once that is in a way done, then it's more up to the company and their investors to take it to the next level.
Yeah, sounds very logical and reasonable, and good to hear also that you see that the role that you're going to play in our local ecosystem regionally here in Tampere. We have strengthening our collaboration with the university, with various different stakeholders in town, and I think the future looks very promising from a local point of view as well. Regarding the future, what trends do you think are currently shaping the startup scene in the near future? If you think about, well, there's a lot of talks about AI, of course, and you mentioned also defense technology and new funding models. Do you see what things should startups be looking at in the near future? What's going on, so to speak? What does your experience say?
Well, if you just look at from the sort of demand and megatrends point of view, obviously defense sector has popped up on the past year unlike ever before, and huge investments and sort of material procurement is going to take place, hundreds of billions on the European level. That's why many large corporations, but also startups, are thinking whether their technology could have a defense-specific angle, so-called dual-use angle. Maybe there's a commercial application. There are many things in software development and IT that may have a commercial use case, but may have a civil use case, but may have a defense use case as well. And of course, that's a good combination if you could serve both segments in parallel, even though the defense technology space is very challenging and has been very slow moving, has been very difficult for startups to penetrate. But the opportunity is so huge that it's worthwhile having a look. Maybe the current 12 months or 24 months and the rise of the defense technology is putting a shadow on climate change and environment temporarily. But of course, that challenge will not go away anytime soon. Yeah. Energy, of course, data and AI and adjacent applications. But as a startup, I wouldn't found a company just based on the mega trends. To be globally relevant, to be competitive, you need to have your own technology, your proprietary technology that's based on your own talent and your background. So if you studied energy and if you know energy, focus on energy. If you've done data and AI, continue working on that. So mega trends come and go, and there are certain sectors that have a lot of demand for the time being, and it may create new opportunities. But of course, everybody should stick to what they know the best.
Right, and somehow related to that, I'm also thinking about like not only the mega trends, but what do you see based on your experience as the current challenges? You mentioned that you've been collaborating in various places already in Finland. You probably know the startup scene on a national level quite well. Where do you see that Finnish startups currently have their biggest challenges? If you think about, for example, can it be related to funding, to finding right talent, market access? Where do you see the Finnish startups are currently having their biggest challenges?
In general, I would still say that Finnish companies have a tendency to be product push. Sometimes VC investors say that seems like you have a solution that is looking for a problem. But of course, you should look at it the other way around. You should try to identify a problem that is difficult enough and big enough that it calls for a solution and then develop that solution, not the other way around. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because of our cultural working style or whatever, but I think startups should spend more time on customer validation, customer feedback before starting to develop a product. And if you do your homework well and you speak to enough clients and understand that this is the real pain point, and if we develop a solution like this, would you be willing to buy? How much would you be willing to pay for that? Your market access will be so much faster as opposed to spending 3 years' time first developing something and then putting on a website and doing social media and hoping that the clients will find you. I'm a little bit exaggerating. It's not as bad, but in general, I think this is still our problem as a nation. We tend to be too much product-oriented and not enough client-oriented or customer-oriented. Of course, funding is always a bottleneck, and we're still a fairly poor country, even compared to Sweden, let alone the bigger countries. Early stage funding has improved tremendously on the past 10, 15 years. Like 20 years ago, we might have had 1 or 2 VC investor, and now we have dozens. The government is now putting more emphasis on later stage funding, which is of course needed because in a way you can't have enough business angels to support somebody like ISI and related remarkable successes. But early stage funding, even though it's improved, it's always a challenge. VC investors say that the best teams always find funding. It's kind of a true, but it's a little bit an elite way of seeing things. If you are a serial entrepreneur with 1 or 2 home runs, then of course it's easy for you to find funding from the VCs you already made very happy. But if you come from a smaller city and you don't know anybody, there's still a lot of work to be done to convince your first investor. Therefore, of course, a little bit related to the customer validation and customer orientation viewpoint, the more you can be client funded, the more you can, in a way, pay your payroll based on invoicing from your clients, the better. And of course, the more attractive you become for investors. All the investors want to fund a company that is already making good revenue.
Yeah. And maybe it leads to all these aspects from the customer validation to profiling the right type of customer. Maybe these are exactly the type of segments where you can help support startups in Tampere with your program.
We try to ask the right questions, the nasty questions, and we try to give alternatives and various viewpoints on where the solution might fit best or what is the right go-to-market strategy. Go-to-market strategy is another related challenge and maybe a weakness for Finnish companies. Home market is tiny, and to be globally relevant, obviously you need to, in a way, find a big enough problem that is semi-global or global and has a big market outside the home market. So it's not a viable go-to-market strategy selling around your home country first and then hoping that you will somehow internationalize. I think that whole word is coined by Finns in the past. But if you could try to think kind of going global from the beginning, it's maybe easier in certain industries, like if you have a software as a service business and you build the whole business model based on inbound interest and online sales. It's kind of easier. Nothing is easy, but yeah, people should think about a scalable go-to-market strategy and try to be global in their thinking from the beginning.
Absolutely. And if we think about, we have sort of a little bit set the scene and we see some of the challenges and what solutions there could be. How do you see moving towards the future, you starting to support our startups in Tampere? What do you see? What will be important for startup ecosystem in Tampere? What sort of things do you see in the future? What is important for us to keep in mind? Not only the city or you as a company, but for our whole ecosystem, including the university, students, current startups, service providers. What do you see is important in ecosystem work?
It's of course important that we have various support mechanisms. This program is one of the support mechanisms, but there are others, and there's Business Tampere, and there's many kinds of support available. But everything starts from the team and their kind of a passion and motivation and their ambition. So if I needed to name just one important ingredient, then I would say the university and the students. If we look at Aalto and Otaniemi, the miracle that happened in just 10 or 15 years is just outstanding by all measures. And so there's a proof point how much can happen in just 10 years' time, let alone a generation. We need to be able to encourage students, alumni, to think entrepreneurial and think about starting their own as an alternative, as a viable alternative to kind of a traditional jobs, which of course are important for our export industry as well. So of course we need all sectors, but reasons that you may know better than myself, there hasn't been that many startups coming from the Tampere region historically compared to some other places, and we need to find ways to encourage that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, more the merrier in this case, I suppose. What would you give as an advice to a startup when they when they're now starting to build their company, whether it's the first one or second one? What do you think they should keep now in mind for the near future?
Well, don't start alone. To be successful and to be fundable, you need to have a team. So try to form a team of like 3 people. I think 3 is a good startup team. It could be bigger, but 3 is better than 2, and 2 is better than 1. But start with the team and try to select co-founders that will last the first at least 3 years. Yeah. Some may last longer, but it's okay. In 3 years' time, you may have already entered the market. You may already have the product out there and some paying customers and investors. And at some point of time, some of the co-founders decide to do something else, which is fine. Then in a way, you're already off the ground and you can add people from outside as you go. Mm-hmm. But I would focus on the team first. The team is everything. Yes, you need to have a business plan. You need to have a concept. But I think business ideas are kind of overrated. The concept will change and it will pivot once or twice or 3 times. So don't worry so much, even if you don't have in a way the great idea to begin with. Some people say that I'd like to be an entrepreneur, but I don't have this great business idea. And so I would just say that don't worry, try to find a great team and you'll find something meaningful to work on.
Yeah, and if you think about you have your early stage founder, you have found your team, you have an idea of the product, the concept, whatever. Now they want to move forward here in Tampere and they want to set up something. Then obviously the question is your support program. So how can startups get involved in the program? Where should they start? How will we be working in the future for these young and fresh ideas who want to actually build something out of it? So how do we proceed?
Yeah, so we'll be setting up a kind of a rotating sort of a meetup and training and event schedule, maybe tentatively like 20 events per year. Obviously, they will be published on the Startup.Tampere website and related partner websites. Much of the activity will be centering around the Platform 6 building, and we'll be also having our team present there. The meetups will be, as said, very low threshold, so you can join in even if you don't have a company, you don't have a team, and you don't have an idea, but you just like to get some inspiration and maybe meet with other people, maybe your potential co-founders. So joining some of these events will be open to everybody, and hopefully will give some inspiration and some learning and tools for the teams to work on their idea. So it's easy to get involved, and then we'll be arranging meetups with investors. We'll be arranging pitching competitions, and we'll be doing individual coaching, which I find very efficient in my experience. And then, of course, trying to help them to score their first investment. Yeah. We can't do miracles. We can't promise that everybody will find their investor. Not everybody will. No. But we'll be working on exposing the teams with the business angel network that Fiban is bringing on the table. We have obviously a lot of investor contacts ourselves. So from our 15 funds, we have hundreds of investors that are participating in the funds and a big bunch of international VCs that we are syndicating, so joining a startup funding round together with another VC. We have built across the years a database within Redstone. We call it Sophia. It has fairly accurate information of about 3 million startups and pretty much every single VC investor, angel investor, and family office investor around the world. So we'll be giving participating teams investor lists that they can also individually work with. That also doesn't open doors automatically. No. You may be sending 100 cold emails and they get 3 responses that they say no, thank you. It's much easier to convince an investor if you work with some more sort of physical proximity. So you met them once or twice, either here in Platform 6 or in the Startup Conference, in the Fiban session or in Slush. Or then the investor comes through networks. And we hope to be able to support those networks. So the heavy lifting still needs to be done by the company itself. They need to convince the investor, but we'll try to facilitate there's more of these contact opportunities.
Yeah, that sounds somehow it's quite nicely summarizes our entire discussion today, like building it all in there quite nicely. What do you say, Kai, in the future, if we think about Platform 6 and Tampere like Startup Tampere ecosystem in all together in general, how does it look like for you? How do you are you excited about starting this collaboration? Where do you think we are in a year from here when we take the next interview, for example, and discuss further if we have managed to fill any of those deal room gaps, and sort of how does it feel at the moment?
Well, we're very excited to be part of this, and we hope that we'll be able to show impact. I can't quantify what the impact is going to be in 1 year's time, but I hope we can replicate some of the success that we've seen in some other cities around the world, and obviously Aalto and Otaniemi is the greatest benchmark in Finland. How much can happen in a short time frame when we have a lot of excited, passionate students with support from alumni and serial entrepreneurs, with presence of local investors and close collaboration with the university. So in a way, there is an ecosystem that is working in Otaniemi, and if we can replicate some of that by bringing entrepreneurs, investors, the university, the industry together, much can happen, and we hope to see unicorns coming from the region as well in the future. I think one additional thing that is missing is the regional funding. We don't have a lot of venture capital locally present in Tampere. That's something that the university may think about. That's something that we will be also thinking about as part of this program and in collaboration, possibly with the university and the city and regional investors.
Yeah, because that could be the first step for the crucial first step for many startups locally.
It is crucial. Yeah. Getting the team and getting funding, those are the two first crucial steps, and then of course finding the clients. But people say, like I said, all the good teams find funding, but it's sometimes difficult to go from Tampere to San Francisco or Berlin, maybe even Helsinki. If you have regional players, local players with funding, it is just easier. It is easier to get to FaceTime. It is easier to build a relationship. And like I said, you can send 100 cold emails to San Francisco and not necessarily get a single response. So therefore, we've seen it in practice that it actually accelerates a lot if you have local funding partners and alternatives.
Agreed. To me, it sounds like we just need to roll up the sleeves and get going, so to speak. Kai, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your very valuable insights. We are very much looking forward for this collaboration and building the next stages of the startup ecosystem in Tampere. What if the listeners of the program, startups or startup-minded people, investors, want to be in touch with you? How would this work?
Yes, so we'll be featured on the Startup.Tampere website. All of the activities will be shared through that. We'll have a person based in the Platform 6 building. And then, of course, our entire team, together with Redstone and Fiban, will be present in the events that we'll be organizing. So there will be plenty of ways to get in touch.
Nice. That sounds very wonderful. Thank you, Kai, once again. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on board today. And in the next episodes, we will continue exploring the development of the startup ecosystem in Tampere. So everyone, stay tuned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kai.